The value of gold in the vegetable market. A lesson in worth and perception. In the year 1956, there lived a university professor and his diligent student. One day, the professor noticed the prolonged absence of his most brilliant pupil. Fearing that the young man might have fallen ill, the professor set out to visit him at his residence. He spent a considerable time inquiring about the student's whereabouts until he finally located his dwelling, a single, cramped room where the student lived in a state of dire and heart-wrenching poverty. The student, maintaining the grace of hospitality despite his circumstances, offered his mentor a simple cup of tea. The professor then inquired with concern, "Why have you ceased your attendance at the university? Why have you abandoned your pursuit of knowledge?" The student looked at his teacher with eyes clouded by despair and replied, "Professor, knowledge does not buy a single radish." Astonished by such a cynical remark from a gifted mind, the professor was about to retort when the student continued, "I was overcome by a ravenous hunger, and I possessed nothing but a mere 50 cents. I purchased a loaf of bread for 40 cents, and I intended to spend the remaining 10 cents on a few vegetables. However, the grocer insisted that the price was 50 cents. I said to him, I could teach you a complex lesson in exchange for the remaining 40 cents, or recount to you a profound story you have never heard before. The grocer merely smiled with indifference and told me, Your knowledge, young man, does not buy a single radish." The student sighed and added, "In that moment, I realized the grocer was right. I decided then and there to abandon my studies and seek any labor that would enable me to buy bread and radishes." The professor remained silent, offering no immediate verbal counterargument. Instead, he reached into his pocket, drew out a gold ring, and handed it to the student. "Go and sell this ring," the professor instructed, "and come to the university tomorrow so we may speak." With those words, the mentor departed from his student's humble room. The following day, the student arrived at the university hall carrying the proceeds from the sale of the golden ring. The professor asked, "For how much did you sell the ring?" The student replied, "I sold it for $200. The professor nodded and said, "That is an excellent sum indeed. But tell me, where did you sell this ring?" The student answered, "I sold it in the gold market, of course." The professor then posed a poignant question, "And tell me, why did you not attempt to sell this golden ring in the vegetable market?" The student laughed at the absurdity of the idea and said, "Because the merchants in the vegetable market do not know the true value of gold, nor do they possess the means to purchase it." At that moment, the professor looked deeply into his student's eyes and said, "In the same manner, the grocer does not know the value of the knowledge you possess. You cannot evaluate your own worth through the eyes of a grocer." The problem did not lie with the vegetable seller, the problem lay within you. It was you who decided to offer your precious knowledge to someone who is incapable of appreciating its worth. The student stood in silence as the weight of the lesson finally took hold. And here, our story reaches its conclusion. Lessons and insights derived from the story. Placement and context. Knowledge has its own people and its own market, as do specific skills and talents. If you present something of immense value to someone ignorant of its worth, they will invariably perceive it as cheap or useless. Do not seek your worth from the wrong source. The grocer's judgment of knowledge was based on his immediate material needs, not on the inherent value of wisdom. Never allow those who are unqualified to diminish your ambitions or self-worth. Choosing the right environment. Success requires positioning oneself in an environment that appreciates what you offer, be it in professional life, friendships, or academic pursuits. The wisdom of the mentor. The professor did not argue with theory. Instead, he provided a practical experience, the ring, to illustrate the profound difference between price and value. Appreciation and respect. The feeling of psychological fulfillment comes through interacting with individuals who possess enough awareness to recognize the effort and knowledge you contribute. The value of the deed. If your kindness or wisdom is met with mistreatment or indifference by the wrong person, it does not lessen the value of your act. Rather, it indicates the recipient's inability to receive such a gift. If you enjoyed the story, Support us by liking and subscribing to the channel to see more.